again, welcome back from spring break. I am videotaping this brief lecture just so that students who aren't here will know what it is we're doing. They're going to be on their own to make up today's assignments. But once again, just take a few minutes to think of some topic you are interested in that you might want to research. This is going to feed into your next speech. Any thoughts? Give me some thoughts, just some ideas. Everybody, one thing. Carol, what are you thinking right now? Awesome. Ahmed?
Innovation laws.
Say again, please.
Innovation laws.
Great. That's real general, so maybe narrowing it down. You could look at the history, for example, or some particular topic that's debatable today. Logan?
How the Olympics started.
Awesome. That's fantastic. I'd be interested in that too. Teaching? Is that your field? Education major? Awesome. You might want to narrow it down to a particular age. That's fantastic. So maybe changes in Indiana law regarding special education, or that's something that our education department recently added a certificate in. So it's a good topic. Josh?
Destruction of historical monuments / statues.
Fascinating. Like it. Renee?
Space X.
Fascinating. Great topic. Christina?
I'm doing my statistics project.
What's your question?
My question is, there's a difference in education and business majors.
That is awesome. So you're gonna interview people here to gather that information. You could add research into additional information outside of what you find in your survey to use for a topic for this class. So that's great. Eric?
Media, specifically Foley and sound design.
Wow, fascinating. I will learn from your presentation, I'm sure. We already talked. Sincere, a thought.
Elephant coaching and how they're trying to prevent that.
Wow, that's great. That's really specific and fascinating. Good. Kyle?
The difference in today's college board and first time data from
Fascinating. Jalen?
Pros and cons of going on tour or professional role.
Great. That's definitely relevant to you guys. Fantastic. First of all, congratulations. The coaching sessions all had enormous strengths. Watch your videos. They should be available in your personal folder in Blackboard. See the strengths of your speaking and keep those strengths. You want to keep them for the rest of the speeches you make this semester. So watch your videos, look at my feedback, see your strengths, see what you did well. Part of what made those coaching sessions so strong was that you knew your stuff. You were sharing with the class a skill that you've been doing perhaps for years, that you know by heart, and that just made the speech flow out of you. The sentences flowed, your engagement with your audience flowed. That is what is meant by comprehension on our rubric. When you know something deeply. The word comprehend in Latin means to grasp or to embrace fully. The goal with your next speech is to take that skill of comprehension and transfer it to something that is new and less familiar. So the topic that you research and the information that you learn through your research, you want that to become as deeply familiar to you as the skill that you shared with us in your coaching session. Does that kind of make sense? So the coaching session is for you a model of what comprehension means. Deep knowledge that just flows out of you when you share it. So you want to take that ability to know something deeply and now transfer that to a new topic for your research presentation. Today we will focus on the skill of handling evidence. That is also part of your research presentation. Handling evidence means using sources of information for yourself to learn and to be able to share that with others. The relevant chapters in our book this week are chapters 8, 9, and 10. Do read those and take the quizzes this week. I will talk about some of that information, but not all of it. Much of it is background information that you need to be aware of and to be able to use. Now take notes into your worksheet. You don't have one yet, correct? If you don't have a worksheet yet, please take one from this folder. So I'm going to lecture just for another couple of minutes, take notes into your worksheet. You're then going to take that worksheet with you when you go to the library. Personal experience is an important form of evidence. We call it anecdotal evidence. An anecdote is a story. What you, in your personal life, have seen, heard, witnessed, and know for yourself is an important source of evidence. So your personal experience are evidence. When you use anecdotal evidence in a research presentation, in your research, it gives passion to your topic. You know about that topic, and the knowledge can just flow from you. You'll be able to express your conviction and your confidence in your emotion, in your delivery skills. It also gives authenticity to your speaking. Because you know that information firsthand, you are more credible, more believable as a speaker. To give a personal example, next week, God willing, I am scheduled to give a presentation at a conference at the University of Notre Dame on traditional agriculture in Flores, Indonesia. It helps that I have visited Flores and spent time in my husband's family's village and seen for myself how people farm. That will make my presentation much more credible, much more believable, hopefully much more compelling to the listeners than if I had never been there at all and was just basing everything on articles or books or websites that I have read. So choosing a topic that somehow keys into your personal experience or using your personal experience in your research is very important. There are pitfalls, however. The biggest pitfall that you need to learn to avoid, and this is a question in the worksheet, so write it down, is the logical fallacy called hasty generalizations. It's when you draw conclusions that are too broad from a small amount of evidence. So for example, I have visited one village in Flores, Indonesia. I cannot draw conclusions about the whole entire country based on that one village. Or maybe, to give another example, let's say Kyle had a negative experience of being discriminated against by a middle-aged white woman, just hypothetically. If he drew the conclusion that all middle-aged white women were biased against young men, that would be a hasty generalization. It's false. Or let's say, for example, I had a negative experience with a student athlete from a particular sport in one of my classes, not this class. But if I were to conclude that every student on that team was a bad student because one student misbehaved, that would be a hasty generalization. So what you need to watch out for when you're using your personal experience as evidence, watch out for drawing conclusions that are too broad. Just because you experienced something doesn't mean it's true for our whole society. Or just because you know someone who experienced something doesn't mean it's true for our whole society. So do use personal experience in your research, but go beyond that, and that's what we're going to focus on today. You need to be able to find and to use reliable sources of information and evidence beyond your personal experience. Your statistics class is asking Christina and Christina to do your own research. You can use that. Research that you conduct is not just personal experience. It's not anecdotal evidence. That is evidence that you could use in a research presentation. You can go beyond your own research into that topic, however, if you wish, for this class, by finding additional sources of reliable information on that topic. We are going to focus on 3 kinds of searches in today's class. I'm going to describe them, take notes into your handouts, and then we're going to go to the library and you will need to find one source from each of those categories that somehow relates to your topic that you will use for your research presentation for this class. Again, if you just came in, you can choose a topic that dovetails with something you have to do in another class. For example, if you have to give a presentation in a history class or an econ class or a science class, it is perfectly fine to use that topic for this class and get double duty out of the assignment. That's perfectly fine. Okay. To make a hasty generalization about your generation, and I know this could be wrong, your first instinct when you hear the word research is probably to jump on your phone and Google it. There are great advantages to using the internet, but there are also great disadvantages. The wonderful thing about the internet is anybody can post anything on the internet. You or I, for a couple of bucks a month, can have our own blog or website. The horrible thing about the internet is anybody can post anything on the internet. So let's say, for example, I were to create a blog or a website about the Japanese language. It would be garbage because I don't know anything about that. So your general internet search, or Google, is the least reliable kind of search to do. There are 2 reasons why you might want to use that kind of search. You might use that kind of search as preliminary background on a topic that you are not yet familiar with, just to see what's out there. And for that, Wikipedia is not a bad source. Wikipedia can be a useful source if you've got a broad topic, like education in general, because millions of people are looking at that website and correcting errors. So if someone posts an error on a Wikipedia page on education, somebody else is probably going to see that 2 seconds later and fix it. Do you know what I mean? Wikipedia is like this. It's the collective knowledge of millions of people who happen to be looking at that site. So Wikipedia can be okay for background information. You cannot use it as a source in an academic research presentation. I can't stress that enough. And don't ever use Google as your source. Google is not a source. It is a search engine. What is the difference? What is the difference between a source of information and a search engine?
Search engine leads you to a source.
Yes. The search engine is the highway that gets you there. The source is the place you want to get. So you must always cite the original sources of information and images and videos. Who created that originally? You've got to cite that. So there are good things and bad things about general internet sources. You do need to find at least one source to use for your research, but you need to be very careful with it. You will need to explain why you think it is reliable. The other time it's good to use a general internet search is when you're very familiar with your topic. And you can tell the good websites from the bad ones, right? You can tell the BS from the good stuff. So if it's a topic you are super familiar with, Josh, law enforcement, for example, or the Navy, you can immediately spot an error in a website, and you know this website's BS. For me, theology and religion is my background. I can spot the BS in a website about religion. So general internet searches can work when you know your topic really well. It's best to look for a source that's related to an organization that's working on your issue. So, for example, who is interested in immigration laws? Okay, Ahmed, an organization, a reliable organization that's working on that issue might be a good source to go to. When you look at that website, you have to look at the About section. See what this organization is. Do they have an address? Do they have contact information? Who is on their board? So, looking for a hosting organization, and you will have to do that if you use a general internet source, is one way to see how reliable that is. The go-to source is, and ought to be, our library collections. You must find and utilize a book for this presentation, a physical paper source that you find in the library. So the first kind of search you'll do is to search our library collections. Our library collections are what we physically have in the library here at CCSJ on paper. We have books that you can check out. We have reference works, which you can't check out, but they're a good place to start. And we have journals, periodicals. You cannot check those out either, but those sources you can make photocopies of in the library. So you will need to find a book that somehow relates to your topic in some way, shape, or form, and use that as a source in this research presentation from our library collections. Okay. Our library also has access to academic databases, which the library pays for. This stuff is free, but there's a lot of stuff that you can't get from a Google search because it has to be paid for, subscription stuff, academic journals that are online. So your second kind of search that you're going to do will be to utilize the library database. I will show you here how to get into that because I'm not sure whether the equipment will be set up in the library. So let me go through that right now. I will show you just briefly how to get into and use the search engines for our library collection, but also for our library databases. Go to the CCSJ website, that's easy. Academics, library, and this page is kind of your portal, your gateway to get to all of the library's resources. You can do a search of the library collections here in a very simple way. So you can type in a keyword and just see what pops up. Immigration, we got 179 results. That means you want to narrow your search, and I can help you with that. Now let's see how to get into the databases. Under Resources, click on Databases. If you're doing this off campus, you would have to log in with your student ID number. The easiest way to do this is to search all databases A to Z, click Select All, Continue, and then put in your search terms and see what you get. The more specific you can make it, the better. This is probably going to turn up 804,000 things, so we would definitely want to narrow that down a lot. You can also limit your searches to scholarly or peer-reviewed journals. For this assignment, for your speech research presentation assignment, you do need to find a scholarly, peer-reviewed source through this database. This database could also take you to newspapers, other items that you could get online. It needs to be something peer-reviewed. That narrowed it down to just 116. You're going to do this in the library today. That's why I'm going over it. If you have trouble, I will be there to help you. Dr. Chi, our research librarian, will also be there to help you. So we will move to the library for the rest of class. I will take attendance once we are there. We're going to use the computers. Don't move yet. Do not move yet. I still have reminders for you. We'll use the computers that are just to the left of the entrance. You walk in and you turn left. The computers are there. On the back of your worksheet, you're going to list your 3 sources, including all bibliographical information: author, title, book title, publisher, place of publication, date of publication, page numbers if relevant, everything. If you have a question about what that is, see me. But you need to list it all there. You also then need to keep copies of your sources for yourself, because you're going to read and use them, and turn in copies to me, so that I can read over your sources and assist you with preparing your research summaries. The book, if the book can be checked out, turn it into me and tell me what pages you need. If the book cannot be checked out, you can make photocopies of it. I can assist you with that if necessary. Just a reminder, remember the quizzes and weekly post in Blackboard. I have left last week's Blackboard discussion forum open because the posts were so outstanding. I wanted all of you to be able to see them as examples. But do not put new posts in there. put this week's post in this week's forum. Again, if you're not doing those posts, you're losing 10 points a week from your grade. That's like missing 2 classes. So be mindful of that. You're writing about an experience of using your speaking skills outside of this class. Any quick questions before we go? I will see you in the library.